النساء تصدقنا فإني أريدكن أكثر أهل النار. فقلنا وبما يا رسول الله؟ قال تكثرن اللعن وتكفرن العشيرة. ما رأيت من ناقصات عقل ودين أذهب للب الرجل الحازم من إحداكن. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, O woman, give sadaqah, for indeed I was shown that you are the majority of the people in the hellfire. So the woman, they said, O Messenger of Allah, why are the women the majority of the people in the hellfire? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he stated, that is because you curse a lot and you are ungrateful to the good that is done to you. And I have not seen anyone more incomplete from the area of the intellect and from the deen that can cause a strong-minded man to go astray than one of you. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gave this address to the woman on the day of Eid, because the women are in need to be addressed specifically, because they have affairs with them that comes from them specifically that exclude the men. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the care that he had for the women of this ummah, he would give them time for them. So he called out to them and encouraged them to give sadaqah. And we are not asking for the women's money today. We want to make a point. He encouraged them to give sadaqah, because sadaqah is one of the ways to prevent yourself from the hellfire. As the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, اتقوا النار ولو بشق التمر كما قال sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Fear the hellfire, protect yourself from the hellfire, even if it's with half of a date that you give in sadaqah. So here he's telling them, give sadaqah, because I've seen that the majority of the people in the hellfire are women. Does this mean that Islam now is a male chauvinistic religion and everything is in favor of the men? No. This is the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam speaking from revelation, speaking to the women of this ummah to warn them, so that they do not be from these women who will be in the hellfire. Be aware, my noble sisters, of these women who claim to be Muslims. Be aware of these women who claim to be Muslims or are weak Muslimat, and they're going around with this liberalist, feminist agenda, as if the rules and regulations of Islam oppress the woman. Allah Azza wa Jal has freed the woman from the slavery and the exploitation of the men. Islam has given honor to the woman. It is the Jahiliyyah and the ways of the men that have oppressed the woman. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came with that which gives honor to the woman and a protection for the woman. So here's another example of how the Prophet is protecting the woman from the greatest of the punishments, the hellfire of Allah. So the woman, they ask, and this shows the intelligence of the Sahabiyat. Why are the women the majority of the people in the hellfire? You don't find the Sahabiyat saying, here he go again talking against the woman. They believed in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they knew that he had their best interests at hand. So they asked him, why are the majority of the people in the hellfire women? For what reason? So that they can protect themselves from that which causes them to enter to the hellfire. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave them the reason. Tukfirna al-la'an, you curse a lot. Sisters, watch your tongues. Be mindful of the things that you say. Be careful of how you speak to your husband, how you speak to your children, how you speak to your parents. Stay away from the cursing and the foul language. The Prophet ﷺ was not one who spoke with foul language. Nor do we find the wives of the Prophet ﷺ radiyallahu anhunna ajma'een being women who were lewd in speech. So the women who curse a lot, you have to be very careful, because this is from the characteristic of the women of the hellfire. Don't curse your children when you get upset. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La tal'anu awladakum." Don't curse your children. Why? Because you may curse them at a time when the dua is accepted. And then now Allah accepts that dua against your child, and your child becomes cursed. Be careful. Don't curse your husbands. Don't curse your parents. If you see something from them that you do not like, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Then give the reminder. For really the reminder benefits the believer. But cursing is not befitting. Using foul language is not befitting. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, وَتَكْفُرْنَ الْعَشِيرَ. And you deny, you are ungrateful for the good that is done to you. Meaning by way of your husbands, who go out of their way and put forth great effort to provide for the family. This is something that you have to acknowledge and recognize and commend. No man is perfect. No man is free from error. Every one of us from amongst the men, we have mistakes. But that doesn't give the justification to be ungrateful to your husbands for what they do for the household. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that the men are the protectors and the maintainers of the women. So when the men are fulfilling their duty, you have to show appreciation. You have to be grateful, even for the smallest amount of good. And thank Allah that Allah has not put over you a man who oppresses you, a man who beats you, a man who yells and curses at you, a man who treats you as if you are a woman of the street. Be grateful that Allah has given you a husband who honors you, and who gives you your rights as a Muslimah, and puts you in a position to raise your children upon Islam. Be grateful for that. But the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that there are some women, they see from you one thing that they do not like, and they say, مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. I have never seen no good from you. SubhanAllah wa bihamdi. A man take care of his family 20, 30 years straight, consistent. He does one thing that she doesn't like, everything out the window. This type of behavior and mannerisms are inappropriate, because it causes the woman to go to the hellfire. How are you going to throw away the 10, 20, 30 years of good, the overwhelming good, for one thing you don't like, two things you don't like, three things you don't like? The man prays 5 times a day. The man is chaste. He's not out there sleeping around with women committing adultery. You don't appreciate because he made you upset. مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. I have not ever seen any good from you. Or the man, he decides he wants to take on another wife, which is his allowance. Allah has given him the right. You're getting your rights. The man wants to marry a second wife, a third wife. مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. Same man who paid for you to go to Hajj. مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. Same man who paid for you to go to Umrah. Same man who paid for your parents to go to Hajj and go to Umrah. مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. Then you storm out the house with the jilbab he bought and the shoes he bought. Then you go and get into the car and drive that he bought. مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْكَ خَيْرًا قَطْ. اتَّقِ اللَّهِ. Sister, you got to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be grateful for the good. And if there is some error coming from your husband, then correct him with the correct mannerisms. Correct him with hikmah. Use wisdom in correcting him. Correct him with gleam, gentleness, thrift, kindness. This is how you correct your husband when he does wrong. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إذا صلت المرأة خمسها وصامت شهرها وحفظت فرجها وأطاعت زوجها قيل لها ادخلي الجنة من أي أبواب الجنة شئت. That's the bushra for you, my noble sisters. When the woman prays her 5 daily prayers, not on the phone all day, wasting time in front of the TV, watching things on the phone and internet, wasting salat, go in and go out, no prayer. No, woman prays her 5 daily prayers on time, and she fasts her month, meaning Ramadan, and she preserves her private parts. She don't have no boyfriends. She ain't sleeping around. She preserved herself for her husband alone. She's like Sarah, alayha salam, when her Ibrahim passed through that land, and that tyrant king, he wanted to speak with her. What did she say? Oh Allah, indeed, I have kept myself chaste and preserved my private parts except with my husband. Do not allow this tyrant to get hold of me and to commit zina with me. And after she made that dua, what happened? The man, he fell down and started to go through seizures. To the point that he said, get this woman out of here. This is a shaytana you brought here. She wasn't a shaytana. She was a muhsina. She was salihah, righteous, good woman. She was chaste, and Allah protected her. These are the examples. Aisha radiallahu anha, the munafiqun, they started that slander that she slept with the sahabi. But Allah sent down revelation declaring her innocent. This is how the woman have to be, preserving your private parts. It is not worth you sacrificing your religion, sacrificing your relationship with Allah, sacrificing and destroying your family for a small temporary time of pleasure. How long is that relationship going to be with that kafir that you're sleeping with, or that criminal Muslim man that you're committing zina with? How long is that going to last? You hear about Muslim women married, having boyfriends, getting pregnant by these men, coming home and then telling the husband it's his child, and then later on it comes out it's not his child. And what does this come from? The lack of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The society, the evil and wicked friends, the poison that you are putting into your heart, that you're looking at from these programs, and other than that. This is where this garbage is coming from, corrupting the minds of the woman. And some of the women, they're going out into the workforce, and they don't even have to go out into the workforce, but they go out into the workforce, and now they're mixing with these men, and then these men will have these slick, sweet talking, corrupt the woman, and encourage her, and deceive her to give up her chastity. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned this because this is important. وَحَفِظَتْ فَرْجَهَا, she preserves her privates. وَأَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا, and she obeys her husband. The obedience to her husband is an obedience to Allah. لَا طَاعَةَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ فِي مَعْصِيَةِ الْخَالِقِ. There is no obedience to creation and disobedience to the Creator. If your husband commands you to do something wrong, you don't listen. But if he commands you within the realms of Islam, it is upon you to obey your husband in that which is good. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, لو كنت آمرا أحدا أن يسجد إلى أحد غير الله لأمرت المرأة أن تسجد لزوجها لعظم حقه عليها، أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. if I was to command anyone to prostrate to anyone other than Allah, I would have commanded the woman to prostrate to her husband for the great right that he has over her. And this is when Mu'adh ibn Jabal came back from Sham and he prostrated to the Prophet. The Prophet said, "What are you doing? Get up." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, I've seen that people prostrating to their dignitaries and their elite in Sham. You are the Messenger of Allah. You have more right that we prostrate to you, meaning out of respect and honor, not out of ibadah." So then the Prophet mentioned this. If I was to command someone to prostrate to anyone other than Allah, I will command the woman to prostrate to her husband due to the great right that he has over her. So when a woman prays her 5 prayers, fasts the month of Ramadan, preserves her private parts, and obeys her husband, 4 things. It's not a lot that is being requested from you, sister. 4 things. It will be said to her, into paradise by any of the doors of paradise that you wish. 4 things, sister. Be patient on these 4 things until you die. You can enter into any door of paradise that you want. Keep that in mind. When the shaitan tells you to keep looking at the program and don't make the salah on time, paradise, any door. Keep that in mind when the month of Ramadan comes around. And when you have to make up your days from Ramadan, don't be negligent. You have to make up those days. Keep in mind any door of paradise. Keep in mind when that man comes to you and makes you an offer that he figures you can't refuse, giving you some money, giving you some jewelry or anything from the worldly pleasures just for you to sleep with him. Keep in mind any door of paradise. When your husband is commanding you to do something that's not against the religion and you don't feel like doing it, keep in mind any door of paradise. Let that be the driving force behind you to preserve these 4 affairs that have been mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.